So again, what was our first takeaway class? Nominal rate of return is equal to your real rate of return plus inflation premium. We will have to modify that class to give us proper perspective. It should be the one on the left side of the equation class should be your real rate of return. Because normally the nominal rate of return is already fixed. It's what is stated or that is the coupon rate. So we use that formula class for us to know how much really is the real rate of return from the perspective of the investors. Let's modify our first takeaway as the real rate of return is equal to nominal rate of return minus inflation premium. To highlight that it is the real rate of return that is our utmost concern. But I hope you understand that that's the same equation class. We're just transposing the real rate of return. So the real rate of return is equal to the nominal rate of return minus your inflation premium. Okay? And with that, I want us to go back to number 19. How does inflation impact a bond's rate of return? So basically, if you have high inflation class, and considering that your stated or your nominal rate is fixed, it will leave you with a lower rate of return. So from the perspective of the investor class, your real rate of return will go down if inflation is high. Because the bonds will normally have fixed, stated, or coupon rates. So which would be your nominal rate of return. Okay, but we know that your nominal rate of return should cover inflation plus. Okay, you should not invest in something wherein the promised return is lower than the inflation premium. So, from the perspective of the investor, the amount that you would really get is not the amount stated in the instrument, but the nominal rate of return less the inflation premium. That's why the answer number 19 is negatively. Okay, I had to modify our first takeaway because if we stick with it class, it would appear that the nominal rate of return is not normally fixed. Your stated rate is generally fixed class. Okay, and which it is the real rate of return that is dependent on your inflation premium. So nominal rate of return minus your inflation premium will give us our real rate of return. What was the last question answered, class? Was it 20? What was the answer to 20? C, the real rate of interest impacts the level of yield curve. If the real rate of interest is high, then that the starting point of your yield curve would also be high. But as to the direction of the curve class, it is influenced by the inflation. Number 21, there are three common factors that influence both the shape and level of yield curves. Which of the following is not one of these three factors? What's your answer here? It should be letter C, the foreign exchange rate. Number 22, a very similar problem to ones we have already discussed. What is the question here? The real rate of return. Okay, and we know that the real rate of return is equal to the nominal return minus your inflation premium. Okay, so 17% minus 2% is will give us our answer of 17 minus 2 will give you 15. Okay, let's proceed to bond valuation class. Even the questions for bond valuation class are a lot simpler than what you would normally discuss in your finance classes. I tried to recall class if I even had to use the PV factor class when I took the exam. I cannot recall if I did. So I'm not sure if there were really no questions requiring me to compute, or maybe it was not memorable lang because the question was easy, or there were just very few. Okay? And I'm saying this to wash away the stigma, class, that finance is difficult. Again, leave your baggage, your trauma on finance, and be open to the idea, class, that finance can be easy. That's answer number 23. Which of the following statements is most correct? For this kind of question, we really have to go over the choices. Letter A, junk bonds typically have a lower yield to maturity relative to investment grade bonds. Basically, you're asked to compare, class, investment grade bonds or junk bonds. Junk bonds, from the name itself, are junk. Investment grade bonds are of a grade that are considered to be investment level. So definitely, which one is better, investment grade or junk bonds, class? From the investor's perspective, which one do we expect to be better, investment grade bonds or junk bonds, class? Investment grade bonds. Okay, so between these two, which do we think will be riskier, class? Junk bonds or investment grade bonds? Riskier, see, junk bonds. So if it is risky, do we expect it to have a lower yield to maturity? Yield is basically interest, class. Do we expect yield is basically interest? So we know that junk bonds are riskier. Do we expect it to have a lower interest, class, or a lower yield to maturity? No, because junk bonds are riskier, its interest rate should be high. Okay? And between the two, since investment grade bonds are safer, then it would be understandable for these kind of bonds to have lower returns or lower interest rates. Junk bonds being riskier, they should have higher interest rates. So that makes letter A incorrect. Letter B, a debenture is a secured bond. From this phrase alone, class, I want you to already know that this is incorrect. Because the definition of a debenture bond, class, is that it is an unsecured bond. So definitely, without reading the rest of the sentence, but of course, kasi when you take exams, read everything. I'm just saying this for emphasis. From its definition alone, you should know that the debenture bond is an unsecured bond, which means it is not backed by any asset class. So letter B is also incorrect. Subordinated debt has less default risk than senior debt. Subordinated class, or other term for this is junior class. You will only get paid only if the senior debts are fully paid, class. So which one is riskier, senior or subordinated debt, class? What did I ask? Riskier? Riskier. Riskier, see, subordinated. Because senior debt is more prioritized. In case of default, it would be the holders of senior debt that will be paid off by the collateral first. And if there's any excess in your collateral, that would be the amounts that will be used to pay off the subordinated debt. But what if the collateral is not enough? Who will receive payments? Only the holders of your senior debt. So basically, safer si senior. Mas risky si subordinated. So that means letter C is also incorrect. That means the answer here must be letter E. Can this question come out in the exam? Yes, but how many choices will come out in your exam? Only 4. So I will have to modify this to change it in a way that there will only be 4 choices. As I have practiced, class, in our examination, at least 30% will come out from the handouts. So it's really unacceptable, class, when students score below 30%. And some questions will also be taken from Becker. So really, there's no reason for you to score even below 30. I'm telling you now, in our exams, 30% will be taken from the handouts. At least. Okay? And if there's any exam that you should do well, class, it should be your pre-midterm because it has the shortest coverage. Number 24, one of the basic relationships in interest rate theory is that other things held constant for a given change in the required rate of return, the blank, the time to maturity, the blank, the change in price. The longer the time to maturity, what will happen to interest? The longer the time to maturity, meaning the more interest that is included in your cash flows, the more interest included in the cash flows, the more interest to be removed. That means the amount that will be left will be lower. That means the price will be lower. So it should be the longer the time to maturity. And we're not looking for the price. We're looking for the change in price. For a given change in the required rate of return, what are our choices? Longer, smaller, shorter, larger, longer, greater, shorter, greater. So definitely it's not B and D because it's just basically the same thing. So it's either going to be A or C. The longer the time to maturity, the greater the change in price. So the answer here will be letter C. Next, number 25. A 12-year bond has an annual coupon rate of 9%. The coupon rate will remain fixed until the bond matures. The bond has a yield to maturity of 7%. Because the yield to maturity is basically another name for your effective interest rate. It's the interest rate that you will earn from the instrument, but specifically under the assumption that you will hold the instrument until it matures. Because you have two options: hold until maturity or hold for some period. You have three options: hold until maturity, hold for some period, and dispose before maturity. Or third, hold it for trading lang. Okay. So what's the assumption for yield to maturity? This is the effective interest rate if you will hold it up to its maturity. If you will receive all the cash flows up to its maturity. Which of the following statements is most correct? Letter A, the bond is currently selling at a price below its par value. The DEG there should not have been there, guys. This was a marker for me to explain to you. Another important takeaway, guys, as a guiding principle. DEG stands for if it's discounted, that means the effective interest rate is greater. DEG stands for discounted, effective, greater. Discounted, effective, greater. If it's at a discount, that means the effective interest rate is greater. And it should not be difficult to remember. If you know anyone whose name starts with DEG, then that should be a reminder to you guys. DEG stands for discount, effective, greater. Okay? If it's sold at a discount, that means the effective interest rate is greater than what? Greater than its stated or coupon rate. If discount, effective, greater. It is discounted if the effective interest rate is greater than the coupon rate. So what does this problem tell us? Letter A. Ikapila na ng ating away class. Is that the fourth? Fifth? Let's try to recall now. The first one is real rate is equal to nominal minus inflation. Second is inflation is a measure of risk. Third is, what's the third? The higher the interest, the lower the price. Fourth is inflation is a measure of volatility. Fifth would be discount means effective rate is greater than the coupon rate, DEG, discount effective greater. It is a discount if the effective rate is greater than the stated rate or the coupon rate or the nominal rate. So letter A, the bond is currently selling at the price below its par value. If it is selling below its par value, that means it is a discount. Is the bond at a discount class? Which one is greater? How much is the effective interest rate? Which one is the effective interest rate here? The 7 or the 9? 7. Again, I told you the yield to maturity is just another variation of your effective interest rate. So your effective interest rate here is 7, while your stated or your coupon rate is 9. Which one is greater? Is the effective greater class? No. It is the stated that is greater. So that means it is not at a discount. So that means the price should not be below the par value. In this case, this should be at a premium, meaning the price should be greater than the par value. Letter B, if market interest rates decline today, the price of the bond will also decline today. Is that how price and interest rates behave, class? What's the relationship? Inverse or direct? The higher the interest rate, the lower the price. So if interest rate goes down, should price also go down? No, it should go up. So that means letter B is wrong. So if you're asked what's the relationship between interest and price, inverse, class. Okay. If interest rate is high, price is low. If interest rate is low, price is high. Letter C, if market interest rates remains unchanged, the bond's price 1 year from now will be lower than it today. The bond's price, if interest rates remain unchanged, the bond's price 1 year from now will be lower than it is today. This is correct. Why is it correct, class? Because how does the price move towards maturity, class? It will slowly move towards its par value. So if its initial price is 900, class, what does it mean? The bond is sold at a discount or a premium? 1,000 bonds sold for 900. Was the bond sold at a discount or a premium? Discount. Okay, the price is lower. But how will its price change the closer we get to its maturity, class? Slowly, it will move up to its par value. So by the time it reaches its maturity, class, its value should be equal to its par value. So if it's 900 now, do we expect it to increase or decrease? Increase, because again, it will move slowly towards its par value of 1,000. So that means 1 year from now, we expect it to increase. But why am I saying that letter C is correct? Because in this problem, the bond is not at a discount. The bond is at a premium. So what would be an example? The value of the bond is 1,000. It was sold at 1,100,000. And what would be the movement of the price of this bond, class, as it moves towards maturity? Since it is at a premium, it will slowly go down towards 1,000. Initially, it is 1,100. It will slowly go down to 1,000. So if at year 0, its value is at 1,100,000, even without knowing exactly how much its price will be 1 year from now, we know that it will be lesser than 1,100. Why do we know that it will be lesser than 1,100? Because the price of a bond will move slowly towards its par value. Okay, since we're starting high and the par value is lower, so we will slowly move down to 1,000. Had it been sold at a discount, class, what will be the movement of the price? It will slowly move up towards its par value. And what is the scenario here? We are at the premium. So the initial price is higher than the par value, but again, it will move slowly towards its par value. So year in, year out, we expect the price to go down. But again, if it's a discount, you expect it to go up. If it's premium, expect it to go down. You want that to be included in our takeaways, class? How do we change the. Okay. The price of the bond will move slowly towards its par value. Then you be the one to analyze lang its effect if it's initially sold at a discount or a premium. But the general rule is the price of the bond will move slowly towards its par value. So if you start at 900, it will slowly increase to 1,000. If you start at 1,100, it will slowly go down to 1,000. That will be the sixth already. Okay, the price of the bond will slowly move towards its par value. So that means the answer here is letter C. 26. Which of the following statements is most correct? All else equal, if a bond's yield to maturity increases. Again, klasa, yield to maturity is just another variation of your effective interest rate. What's the scenario here for yield to maturity? This is the effective interest rate if you will hold the instrument up to its maturity. If a bond's yield to maturity increase, so if its interest rate increase, the price will fall. Does that comply with our guiding principles class? The higher the interest rate, the lower the price. So if the interest rate goes up, the price will go down. So does that comply with our guiding principles class? Yes. So that means letter A is correct. Let's go over the choices. All else equal if a bond's yield to maturity increases, definitely letter B is not necessarily true. Currently, if yield to maturity increases, it does not mean that your current yield will fall. Although it's not relevant here, class, it's not even important for me to remember it right now. Yield, there are two components of your yield to maturity class, your current yield and your capital gains yield. If you cannot remember it right now, it's okay lang sa, but I'm just telling you, your yield to maturity can be broken down into current yield and your capital gains yield. Okay, maybe there will be problem later on where we can demonstrate this one. And then letter C, if a bond's yield to maturity exceeds the coupon rate. So replace yield to maturity with effective interest rate. If effective interest rate exceeds coupon rate, meaning effective is greater than the stated or coupon rate. What does that mean? If effective is greater, class, then it is sold at a discount. So that makes letter C false. So the answer really here is letter A. Number 27. Which of the following statements is most correct? If a bond's yield to maturity exceeds its annual coupon, so again, replace yield to maturity with effective interest rate. If effective is greater than the coupon rate, what does that make the price of the bond? Is it at a discount? It should be at a discount. So that means that letter A is false. Again, DEG, discount if effective is greater. And then letter B, are we looking for the correct class? Yes. If interest rates increase, the relative price change of a 10-year coupon bond will be greater than the relative price change for a 10-year coupon bond. No, that's not true. Price change. The relative price change of a 10-year coupon bond, it increases, will be greater than the relative price change of a 10-year. That's not necessarily true. Letter C, if a coupon bond is selling at par, its current yield equals its yield to maturity. Now, if it's selling at par, then that means you do not have any capital gains yield. It should not be current. So the answer there would be, what number are we? Number 27. So the answer there is, sorry, letter A was incorrect, class, correct? Letter B is also incorrect. If a coupon bond is selling at par, it's letter C is correct Because if it's selling at par, that means you don't have any capital gains yield. So that means the effective interest rate is representative only of your current yield. Again, as what I've told you, class, your yield to maturity is composed of your current yield and your capital gains yield. Okay? But if it's selling at par, meaning there will be no changes in its price, class. Okay? Because what did we say earlier? If it's sold at a discount, what will happen to the price? The price will slowly increase towards the par value. If it's sold at a premium, what will happen? Its price will move slowly down to its par value. But what if its price is already equal to the par value? Then there will be no movement. So if there is no movement in price, that means you will not have any capital gains yield. Okay? Your capital gains yield basically tells you the return you get due to the change in price. Okay? So normally, let's say for example, yield to maturity is 10%. Okay? Sometimes your current yield is 8, so that means your capital gains yield is 2%. But if you do not have any capital gains yield, then that would mean your current yield would be equal to your effective interest rate. It's as if your capital gains yield would be 0. Okay, sir, I thought it's easy. So if you're having a challenge absorbing this one, class, forget that we mentioned about this one. All I want you to remember are the things you find easy, class. Later na lang mag-lisod tag-absorb. But for those who can still absorb this one, class, yield to maturity is equal to current yield plus capital gains yield. If there will be no change in price, there will be no capital gains yield. Again, okay ra gyud di sa nila itong absorb. Number 28. A 10-year, so the answer in the previous number kasi is letter C. A 10-year corporate bond has an annual coupon payment of 9%. The bond is currently selling at par. Which of the following statement is most correct? This should be considered easy, class. If it is selling at par, that means its effective interest rate is just equal to its coupon rate. So that means the bond's yield to maturity is the effective interest rate, or the yield to maturity should also be 9%. So that means letter A is true, but we cannot end there because of choice letter E. We need to check the other choices. The bond's current yield is 9%. What did we say, class? If the bond is sold at par value, there will be no change in, what did we say? As we move along the term, class, what will happen if the bond is issued at par value? There will be no change in price. And if there is no change in price, what does it mean? There will be no capital gains yield. So if your capital gains yield is 0, that means your effective interest rate, or in this case, your yield to maturity, will simply be equal to your current yield. Plus, although I do not like it, plus the questions are asking you to absorb current yield and capital gains yield. But let's try to break it down. What could be a possible takeaway? If there is no change in price, there will be no capital gains yield. So if capital gains yield is 0, then your effective interest rate, which is your yield to maturity, will just be equal to your current yield. So that means letter B is also true. How about letter C? If the bond's yield to maturity remains constant, the bond's price will remain at par. And that is also true. So the answer here would be letter E. Plus, if a question comes out in the same exam like this, maybe it's just 1 out of 100. And imagine you will also get it right. There's really nothing to worry about. Next, a 15-year bond with a face value of 1,000 currently sells for 850. Which of the following statements is most correct? If it is sold at 850, is it sold at a premium or a discount, class? Discount. So if it's a discount, what do we expect? that the effective is greater than the coupon rate. And what are the choices telling us? The bond's yield to maturity is greater than its coupon rate. This is true. Again, yield to maturity is just another variation of your effective interest rate. If the yield to maturity stays constant until the bond matures, the bond's price will remain at 850. No, what did we say? If the price is, if its initial price is at a discount, what did we say? It will slowly move up or down, up towards its par value. So it should not remain at par value. By the time of its maturity, it will arrive at 1,000. So letter B is also letter A is correct, right? Letter B is false. Letter C, the bond's current yield is equal to bond's coupon rate. No, since there will be a change in price, your effective interest rate will not be equal to your current yield. So the answer here is letter A. Next, a treasury bond is an 8% annual coupon and a yield to maturity equal to 7.5%. Which of the following statements is most correct? Letter A, the bond has a current yield greater than 8%. No. The bond sells at the price above par. Is it selling at the premium class? Which one is greater, effective or the stated or the coupon rate class? Coupon rate. So if coupon rate is greater, then that means it is at a premium. So that means it is sold at the price above par. So that means letter B is true. If the yield to maturity remains constant, the price of the bond is expected to fall over time. Do you expect it to go down, class? Yes, from premium towards its par value. So that means letter B and C is our answer. Next, a 10-year bond with a 9% annual. I think we've answered a similar question. I'll just give you the answer, class. The answer is letter C. Next, which of the following statements is most correct? Other things held constant. A callable bond would have a lower required rate of return than in a non-callable bond. Plus, what is a call option? A callable bond is a bond that has a call option. A call option class gives a party to require the retirement or the call of the has the right to call the bond. When we say call option class, who is given the right here? Is it the issuer of the bond or the investor in the bond or the holder of the bond? Who will have the right to call? It will be the issuer class. If it is a callable bond, that means the issuer of the bond can call back the bond, meaning it can buy back the bond even before its maturity. What's the equivalent of your call option class? But from the perspective of the holder, the bond holder, it would be your put option. What does it mean? The bond holder can put it for sale to the issuer class. You can require the issuer to redeem the bond. Okay, so it's different class, ha? Callable bond, the option is given to the issuer. The issuer can call it back. For put option, the bond holder can put it for sale or for redemption, requiring the issuer to get it back. So, these options are basically additional features class, additional features. The question now is, which one is more, a callable bond would have a lower required rate of return than a non-callable bond. Which one would be more attractive class? Which one would be more attractive on the part of the investor class? Which one which would be more attractive to an investor? The one with the call option or the one with the non-callable option class? The one with a non-callable. because the issuer just cannot get it back anytime. Okay, so if you're an investor, you prefer that if it is not callable class. If it has a call option, you will require more from the issuer. Think of interest as a price class. You would say, you should give me a higher interest rate if you have the option to get it back anytime. Okay, if I'm an investor, I do not want the bond to have a call option. Okay, so if there's a call option, then I should be compensated. The rate of return should be higher class. So that means letter E is false. A callable bond will not have a lower required rate of return. Investors will require more if there is a call option. On the other hand, class, if it's a put option, who is given the option in a put option class? The bondholder. So if the bondholder is given a price, the investor will be willing to would be more willing to receive a lower interest because it is given an option. Again, if this is too much to absorb, class, okay again, class, just circle back to this question. Okay? If there's anything I want to happen today, class, if there's one thing I don't want to happen, it's for you to be discouraged from these topics. Letter B, other things held constant, the corporation would rather issue non-callable bonds than callable bonds. It's the opposite. The issuer would want to have callable bonds class. It would have to have more flexibility. Okay, so letter B is also incorrect. Letter C, so I think what's important here lang class is that you would remember who exercised the option. If it's a call option, who exercised the option class? Issuer. So the upper hand is given to the issuer. So will the investor be happy? No. So for the investor to agree to that, then the investor should be given more. If it's a put option, who is given the privilege class? It would be the holder or the investor. Will the investor be happy if it's given an option? Yes. If it's happy, will it be willing to accept a lower interest rate? Yes. Letter C, reinvestment rate risk is worse from a typical investor standpoint than interest rate risk. It's the other way around. Interest rate risk is more relevant for a typical investor because normally you will just hold it up to maturity. Letter D, the answer here would be obviously between letter D and letter E. If a 10-year 1,000 par zero coupon bond were issued at a price that gave investors a 10% rate of return. So the stated rate is 0. The effective interest rate is 10. So effective is greater. That means it is sold at a discount. And what did it say? The bond would sell at a premium. So that means letter D is also incorrect. The answer here is letter E. Next. Number 33, which of the following statements is most correct? The market value of a bond will always approach its par value as its maturity date approaches, provided the issuer of the bond does not go bankrupt. That's correct. Okay, but because of choice letter D, we have to go over the other choices. If the Federal Reserve and expecting the analysis and expects inflation to increase, then we will probably observe an immediate increase in bond price. Now, what will happen if inflation increase? Interest will also increase. And what will happen to price if interest increases class? Price will go down. So letter B is definitely false. Letter C, the total yield of bond is derived from interest payments and changes in the price. Letter C is correct. Plus interest payments and changes in the price. Basically, this is your current yield and your capital gains yield. What did they say? When do you have a capital gains? When will there be capital gains yield class if there is a change in price? Then your current yield will come from your interest payment. That's why your total yield or your yield to maturity is composed of your interest payments and change in price, or composed of your current yield and your capital gains yield. So the answer here is letter D, delta A and C. Number 34 should be easy class. Which of the following statement is most correct? If a bond is selling for a premium, that implies the bond's yield to maturity exceeds the coupon rate. DEG, discount if effective greater. So if effective is greater, is it a premium? No, it should be a discount. So that means that A is wrong. B, if coupon bond is selling at par, the current yield equals its yield to maturity. That is true because that means you don't have any CGY or your capital gains yield. Letter C, if rates fall after issue, a zero coupon bond could trade for an amount above its par value. If rates fall after its issue, a zero coupon bond could trade for an amount above its par. It should not be at a premium. It should be at a discount. So even though interest rates will fall, since the stated rate is zero, that would mean that the effective interest rate is still greater than the zero coupon rate. Okay, so even if interest rates will fall, since the stated rate is zero, that means the effective interest rate is still greater. So that means the bond would still be at a discount. Next, which of the following statements is most correct? Can we go over the choices in the class and what the answers, and whatever is the answer, that means the other choices are incorrect. For 35, which of the following statements is most correct? Answer here is letter B. The price of a discount bond will increase over time. We've discussed this already. Assuming the yield bonds yield to maturity remains constant over time. Next, 36, which of the following statements is most correct? Answer is letter E, statements B and C. So that means the debentures generally have a higher yield to maturity. Yes, because they are unsecured. They have higher risk. So that means interest rate should be higher. Letter C, there are two bonds with equal maturity and credit risk. The bond that is callable will have a higher yield to maturity than the bond that is non-callable. Yes, because the investors do not want callable bonds. For them to accept callable bonds, they should be given higher interest rates. Next, a 10-year bond is a 10% annual coupon. And the answer here is letter D. A and C are correct. What number are we, class? 38. A 10-year treasury bond has an 8% coupon. The answer here would be delta. Both bonds will decline in price, but the 10-year bond will have a greater percentage decline in price than the 8-year bond. 39, which of the following statements is most correct? Answer here would be letter E. All statements above are correct. Okay, please go over those choices. Number 40, which of the following statements is most correct? Answer is letter C. Relative to coupon-bearing bonds, zero coupon bonds have more interest rate risk, but less reinvestment rate. We'll talk about reinvestment rate some other time. 41, which of the following will have the greatest percentage increase in value if all interest rate decrease by 1%? So whoever has a higher yield to maturity will have the greatest percentage change. And the answer here would be letter A. Okay, because number one, it has the longest term to maturity. And number two, it will have a greater change in, it will have a greater difference in between its effective interest rate. It will have greater capital gains yield. Number 42, which of the following, are we in 42 class? Which of the following events, which of the following bonds will have which of the following events would make it more likely that the company would choose to call its outstanding callable bonds? The answer here would be letter A, a reduction in market interest rates. I will just explain them. So why would a company decide to class? If market interest rates goes down, what will happen if market interest rates goes down, class? If interest rates goes down, what will happen to the price? It will go up. So if price goes up, class, why will companies decide to call it? Because if they have a call option, class, the call option already includes the price to be paid, class. Okay? The call price is fixed. So regardless of the changes in the value of the bond, the call price is fixed, meaning the amount they will have to pay to get back the bond is fixed. So normally what will they do? They will call it back, class, if the price, the market price is greater than the call price. So because the interest rate went down, the price of the bond is 1,200. But the call price is only 1,100. So would it be advantageous for them to get it back? Yes, because the market value of the bond is 1,200. And how much are they getting it back for? They are only getting it back for 1,100. Okay, so if interest rates goes down, that means price will go up, which would make it more likely to be greater than the call price. Okay, the call price will normally be fixed. So as a rule, you will only call it back if the value of the bond is greater than the call price. If the value of the bond is only 1,050 and the call price is 1,100, are you going to exercise the call option? No, because you're getting something that is lower in value. When are you going to exercise the call option? Only if the price of the bond is greater than the call price. And when will it normally happen for the price of the bond to be greater than the call price? Only if interest rates goes down. Opposite put, class, if you are the holder and you have the put option, when should you decide to exercise the put option, class? What happens in the put option? The put price is also fixed. The amount that you would get is also fixed. So assuming still that the put price is 1,100 and the value of the bond is 1,100, ang put price, and then the price is 1,200. Are you going to sell it back to the issuer for 1,100? No, because if you just sell it in the market, you could get 1,200. So when should you exercise your put option? Only if the price of the bond is lower than the put price. So if our put price is 1,100 and then the market price goes to 1,050, then you exercise your put option. And when you do that, what will happen? You would get 1,100 even though the value of the bond is only 1,050. Okay? So here, even though market interest rate goes down, which would lead to prices going up, it would make the exercise of the call option more likely because it would make the market price of the bond greater than the call price. Okay, next. Number 43. On other things held constant, if a bond indenture contains a call provision, the yield to maturity that would exist without such a call provision will generally be, again, yield to maturity is just another variation of your effective interest rate. If there is no call option, it would be more attractive to investors. So if there's no call option, the yield to maturity would be lower. So the answer number 43 would be Bravo. Number 44, all of the following may serve to reduce the coupon rate that would otherwise be required when a bond issue at par. Answer here would be letter C. Letter A and B, class, makes the bond more attractive. So that means that would result in a lower coupon rate. A call provision does not make the bond attractive to investors, so they will require a higher interest rate. Of course, a change of rating from AA to AAA is better. So if it has a better rating, then we would be more secure. So it would lead to lower interest rate. So the only answer there is letter C. Number 45. Answer there is letter A. Bond A sells at a discount and its price is expected to increase over the next year. Number 46. An investor is considering buying one of two bonds issued by Carson City Airlines. Answer here would be letter D. 1 year from now, bond A's price will be higher than it is today. 47. Which of the following statements is most correct? The answer here is letter A. Long-term bonds have more interest rate risk but less reinvestment rate risk than short-term bonds. 40. Are we in 48 class? 48. Which of the following statements is most correct? Answer is letter D. All the statements above. I think this is just easy class. 49. A 10-year bond. Answer is letter A. If the yield up to maturity remains at 50%, the bond's price will decline over the next year. And then 40. Are we in 50? 50 is you are considering two treasury bonds. Answer is letter D. If the yield to maturity remains at 7%, the price of bond A will decrease over time, but the price of bond B will increase over time. Next, 51. Sinking fund provisions that require companies. The answer here is letter E. Statements B and C are correct. Please go over choices B and C. 52. Which of the following statements is most correct? Answer here is letter D. A and C are correct. Retiring bonds under a sinking fund is similar to calling bonds under call provision in the sense that bonds are repurchased with issue. Sinking fund provision makes a debt issue less risky. That's correct. Next, 53. When are the problems coming? 53. Which of the following statements is correct? Answer is letter C. If a coupon bond is selling at par, its current yield equals its yield to maturity. 54. Assume that all interest rates. Answer there is letter C, class. 55. Which of the following has the greatest interest rate risk? Answer there is letter C. What number are we? 56. If the yield to maturity decrease 1 percentage point, which of the following bonds would have the largest? We've answered a similar problem here. Answer would be letter C. Number 57. If interest rates fall from 8 to 7%, answer here would be letter A. Number 58, class. 57. Which of the following treasury bonds will have the largest amount of interest rate risk? We have letter A. That's the lowest interest coupon rate and the highest term. 59. All treasury securities have a yield to maturity of 7%. So the yield curve is flat. If the yield to maturity in all treasuries were to decline to 6%, which of the following bonds would have the largest percentage increase in price? Answer here is highest term, lowest rate. 15 years, 0 coupon. So answer here is letter A. Number 60. Bond X. Answer here is letter D. If market interest rates remain at 10%, bond Z's price will be lower 1 year from now than it is today. Next is Are we in 61? Bonds A, B, and C all have maturity of 10 years and a yield to maturity equal to 7%. Which of the following statements is most correct? The answer there, class, is letter B. If the yield to maturity in each bond increases to 8%, the price of all three bonds will decline. Number 62, bond A has 9%. Answer there is letter E. None of the statements is correct. Number 63, which of the following statements is most correct? Answer is letter D again. None of the statements above is correct. There's a question that does not have a number, class. The next question, which of the following statements is most correct? The answer there is letter B. Two bonds have the same maturity and the same coupon rate. However, one is callable and the other is not. The difference in prices between the bonds will be greater if the current market interest rate is below the coupon rate than if it is above the coupon rate. Okay, find time to analyze that, class. Next, 64. A company is planning to raise 1 million to finance a new plant. Which of the following statements is most correct? Answer there is letter C. If debt is used to raise the $1 million, but 500,000 is raised as a first mortgage bond on the new plant and 500,000 is debentures, the interest rate in the first mortgage bond would be lower than it would be if the entire 1 million were raised by selling the first mortgage bonds. 65. Which of the following statements is most correct? Letter C. Income bonds pay interest only when, this will be more on definition of terms already. So when the amount of the interest is actually earned by the company. Next, 66. Which of the following statements is most correct? Answer here is bravo. The total return on a bond for a given year arises from both the coupon interest payments, which is your current yield, and the change in the value of the bond from the beginning to the end of the year, which is your capital gains yield. Number 67. Which of the following statements is most correct? Answer is letter E, statements A and B. Next, are we in 68, class? 68, which of the following statements is most correct? If a bond sells, the answer there is letter E. None of the statements above is correct. 69, you purchase a 10-year corporate bond. Which of the following statements is most correct? Answer here is letter A. Some of these are just being repeated now. 70, which of the following statements is most correct? Answer is letter C. All else equals, senior debt will generally have a lower yield to maturity than subordinated debt. Number 71, which of the following statements is correct? Answer is letter B. An indenture is a bond that is less risky than a... Incorrect, class. Incorrect, sorry. Incorrect. An indenture is a bond that is less risky than a subordinated. Riskiest C, indenture. Next. 72. Which of the following statements is correct? Answer is letter B. All else equal, senior debt has less default rates than subordinated debt. 73. Which of the following statement is most correct? Answer is letter D. Statements A and B. 74. Which of the following statements is most correct? Answer is letter A. Oh wait, are we in 74, class? Answer is letter D, statements A and C. And then 75, which of the following statements is most Correct answer there is letter A. If interest rate increase, a 10-year zero coupon bond will drop in price by a greater percentage than will a 10-year 8% coupon. Let's proceed to the computation now, class. 76. A 12-year bond is a 9% annual coupon and a yield to maturity of 8% and a face value of 1,000. What is the price of the bond? How do you get the price? Just get the present value of the cash flows that it will give. What cash flows will the bond give? Number one, it will give you interest. Number two, it will give you the face value upon maturity. So we will have two sets of cash flows, class. The first set of cash flow is an annual cash flow or a periodic cash flow representing interest which we will receive every year. How much is the interest that we will receive every year, class? What rate are you going to get to determine how much interest payment you will receive? Is it the 9 or the 8%? Which one will you use, the 9 or the 8%? To get the interest amount, get the stated or the coupon rate, and that is the 9%. And how much is 9% of 1,000? That will give you 90. So what does it mean? Every year we receive an interest of 90. How many times are we going to receive 90 interest, class? 12 years, once every year. So we'll have 12 cash flows of 90 every year. And how do you get an annuity cash, the present value of a periodic cash flow, class? By using the annuity factor. And I have given you the PV factors, class. You get the table, class. What I want us to develop today is also knowing which factor to use. So what are we trying to look for? We're trying to look for the present value. So which table should we use? Based on the tables I have given you, are you going to be using table 1, table 2, 3, or 4? Definitely not 1 and 2. Do you follow, class? Because table 1 and 2 is for future value. So we are left with either table 3 or table 4. And then table, which between the two should we be using? Are we looking for lump sum, or are we looking for a single cash flow, or are we looking for an annuity, class? Annuity because we're receiving periodic cash flow of 90. Now, what rate are you going to be looking for, class, in getting the present value factor? Is it the 9% or the 8%? Which one, 9 or 8? It should be the effective interest rate. And what is the effective interest rate here? The yield to maturity. How much is the yield to maturity? 8%. Okay? So you look for 8%, and then for how many years, class? 12. So 8 and then 12. Our factor is how much, class? 7.5361. What do we do with 7.5361? Multiply it with your periodic cash flow. How much is our interest, class? 90. How much is 90 times 7.5361? Give me the figures, class. 7.5361 times 60. How much? Sorry, times 90. How much will that be? 678. Am I correct? 678.249. Let's just have 225 na lang. Next, that's your first stream of cash flow. What's the second cash flow you can get from a bond? Aside from interest, you would also get the principal at the maturity date. So how much are you going to get at the maturity date? You would get the entire par value. How much though? Entire par value? 1,000. Are you going to add entire 1,000? No, because when will you receive the 1,000? 12 years from now. And what are we looking for? We're looking for the present value of these 1,000 that we can receive 12 years from now. And in solving for the present value, what do you need? You need the present value factor.
which table are we going to use? Table 3 or table 4? Table 3 or table 4? Table 3, because how many cash flows do we have? How many 1,000s are we going to receive? Only one. So you will have only a single cash flow. Okay? But again, what rate are we going to be using? Still the effective interest rate. How is the effective interest rate given in this problem? It is given as the yield to maturity. And how much is the yield to maturity? 8%. And for what period are we be looking for? 12 years. So 8% at 12 years will be 0.3971. You multiply this with 1,000, you would get 397.1. What does the 397.1 represent? It represents the present value of the 1,000 that you will receive 12 years from now. What does the 678.25 represent? By the way, how did we get the 678.25? That was the PV annuity factor of 7.5361 times 90. And what does the 678.25 represent? It represents the present value of the 12 $90 interest payments that you will receive for the next 12 years. So what do? Add the present value of the interest plus the present value of the principal. 678.25 plus 397.1 will give you how much? 1,070 exact 0.35. Okay, but our choices are rounded up to the nearest ones place. So our answer here would be letter D, 1,075. Because is it correct na it's greater than 1,000? Does it mean that this is sold at a premium class? Which one is greater? The coupon rate or the effective rate class? Coupon. So that means it is at a premium. Okay, that's one way of checking whether your answer is acceptable. So answer here is letter D. Next, you intend to purchase a 10-year, 1,000 face value. What's the question? How much should you be willing to pay? If you're asked how much you should be willing to pay, then you should solve for its fair price. How is this different from the previous problem class? This time, the cash flows are semi-annual class. Okay. So, how much interest are you going to receive every compounding period? By the way, how much is the effective interest rate here? No, it's given. Pays interest 60 every 6 months. So that means 6% every 6 months, or its annual coupon rate is 12%. Okay, but we'll use the 6 because that's how you get the present value factor. Okay, and then how many times are you going to receive 60 class? How many times are you going to receive 60? Are you going to receive it 6? Okay, it says 6 months? No. Are you going to receive it 10 times? No. How many times are you going to receive 60? You're going to receive it 20 times. Does everyone get the 20 class? Because every 6 months you would get 60. How many 6-month periods are there in a 10-year period? 20. Okay? So you will receive $60. You will receive $60 20 times. And how do you get the present value of $60 class? By getting its present value, by getting its annuity class, present value. So, which table are we going to be using? 3 or 4? 4. Now, what rate are we going to be using? 6 or 12? Not the annual class. Use the interest rate applicable for every compounding period, and that is 6. And how many periods are we going to receive the interest? Is it just 10? No, it is 20. Okay, so where does 6% and 20 meet class. The factor here is 11.4699. What do you do with 11.4699 class? Multiply it by 60. Help me here. 11.4699 multiplied by 60 will give you how much? 638? 688.194? So 19. What does the 688.19 represent? It represents the present value of the 20 interest payments. What else do we lack? We need the present value of our principal. How much is the principal? 1,000. So what factor are we going to use? Lump sum or single cash flow class or annuity? If it's for the principal class, just use single cash flow. So 6% and 20. How much is 6% and 20? You would get 0.3118. Multiplied by 1,000, that would be 311.8. Wait, we should not have used the 6. Sorry. The 6 is the stated. We should be using the effective. Are we given our required rate of return? 10% annual, but we should have been using 5. Erase everything, class. Go back to our table and then use 5. Start with table 4, 5% and 20. That would be 12.4622. 12.462. And then multiplied by 60. Sorry, we should not have used the 6%. 12.4622 times 60, class. Help me here. 747.78. 73. 747.73. What does this represent? This represents the present value of your 2060 interest payments at a rate of 5% for every semi-annual period. Next, add the present value of the principal. Again, 1,000, but we need to use another rate, not the 6%. 5% and 20. Where does 5% and 20 meet? It's 0.3769. So 747.73 representing the present value of the interest plus 3769 representing the present value of the principal. How much will this give us, class? 11. How much, class? 1124. 1124. 7 plus 6 is 63 4 1124. 1124.6. Why do we have 63? Anyways, the answer here would be letter E. Let's have one more question na lang. 78. Assume that you wish to purchase a 20-year bond that has a maturity value of 1,000 and make semi-annual interest payments of 40. If you require a 10% nominal yield to maturity on this investment, what should be the price that you should be willing to pay for the bond? So the same procedure. But do we have 40 in our table, class? Let's skip this one. But the answer there is letter D. 820. Let's have 79. A bond that matures in 12 years has a 9% semi-annual coupon and a face value of 1,000. The bond has a nominal yield to maturity of 8%. What is the price of the bond today? First, get the present value of your interest. How much interest are we getting? 45. How many times are we getting 45? We'll be getting it every 6 months for 12 years. So we'll be getting it 24 times. And what rate are we going to be using in determining the present value factor class? It would be 1/2 of 8%, which is 4%. Which table are we going to be looking at? Table 3 or table 4? Since we're solving for the present value of the interest, we'll be looking at table 4. So you look where 4% meets with 24. Am I correct, class? It's 24. Is it 12 years? Okay, so 24 and 4%, that will be 15.247. 15.247 multiplied by, how much is the periodic interest, class? 45. Help me here, class. 15.247 times 45. How much will this give you? 686? 115? So let's make this 1.12. Next, get the present value of the principal. How much is the principal? 1,000. To be received when? 12 years from now or 24 compounding periods from now. With what factor do we use? The annuity or the lump sum factor, class? Lump sum. Okay, use 4% and 24. Where does 4% and 24 meet? It's 0. How much? 3901. Okay, times 1,000, you will have 390.1. Add that with 686.12, you will have 0.22. This would be 6, 7, 1,076.22. Is that in the choices, class? 1,000, yes. So the answer there would also be letter E. Okay, let's end here. That's